Dr. Ali,
Here.
Andre Allen,
Present.
Annette Bergner, resigned. Demaria Boone,
Present.
Haley Brewer, Shalandra Birch, Terry Burnside,
Here.
Sharon Draper, excused. Bobby Ford,
Here.
Donald Jackson. Donald Jackson,
Here.
Lorene King,
Present.
Lauren Marion,
Here.
Megan Wynn,
Here.
Tyson Park, excused. Karen Wilson,
Here.
Janice Zagardo.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we'd like to do approval of our minutes from our last meeting. Like make a motion.
I move that the minutes be approved.
And who is speaking?
Lorraine King.
Second by,
Second by Andre Allen.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say aye. I move to receive the minutes, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say, well, welcome everyone, and thank you all for sacrificing time and efforts to participate in tonight's meeting via Zoom. It's always been said, if there's a will, there's a way. We thank you all for your sacrificing time. I mean, right now, during this time, based on the climate with the civil unrest, the protests, it's so important for us to, us in this capacity of the police and community relations, to assist in navigating through some of the difficult times. Tonight, we can spend some time on how we can, or see what we can do to help some of the relationships in Peoria. Before we get into all that, I would like to go ahead and just ask Police Chief Marion to give us general police updates.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Considering that we are still with the governor's executive order,
Yes, ma'am.
would you please read that paragraph?
I sure will. In accordance with Governor J.B. Pritzker's executive orders 2020-07 and 2020-39, stated that provisions of the Open Meetings Act are suspended to include allowing members of the public body to be physically present during a meeting, as well as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's recommendation of social distancing of at least 6 feet between persons. City Hall is only open to the public with capacity of social distancing restriction Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. To fulfill the requirements of the recommendations and to comply with the Open Meetings Act for the Advisory Committee on Police Community Relations, that meets 5:30. The public may email comments to the committee, no more than 75 words. I could go to Mrs. Jackson, her email, joejackson@peoria.gov, peoriagov.org by 2 p.m. June 18, 2020. The notice and agenda are posted in the city's website.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to acknowledge, I know that Janice Zagardo has joined us, but Nina Gugas is
Yes.
also on the meeting, and she, Mr. Jackson, you should say this instead of me, so I'll just defer to you to say why Nina is also here. You have to unmute.
Oh boy, there we go.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, Ms. Gugich is a member of the NAACP, and she will be replacing me, I think in September. I'll attend the July and the August meetings, and then she will be the NAACP representative beginning September 1. So welcome, Nina.
Thank you. I look forward to working with everyone.
I
need
need a.
Hello.
Yes, and I would ask that everyone, if you're not speaking, to mute your phone. Maybe we can prevent some of the background noises. Thank you. And thank you for that, Dr. Rita Lee, Ms. Jackson, Ms. Gubis. So moving forward, can we get to the general police updates? Chief Marion?
All right, thanks, Terry. So we haven't met for a couple months. So I'll just do a high-level overview on kind of what's been going on. I'm sure you've seen in the news everything that's going on. I do have Assistant Chief Washinsky in the office with me. That way, if you hear somebody else talk or speak up, you'll know who it is. So during, I'm sure everyone has seen my comments. The incident, speaking out against the actions that occurred in Minneapolis, and that did to the board, and that is the position I take on that. A couple of days of civil unrest in the city. It wasn't as bad as some places, thankfully, but there were a lot of incidents. So it is to continue working on the police community relation. A press release, I did a press conference on the different incidents that had occurred during that time. So we made it through that incident. We're pretty much back to normal incidents occurring in the city. It's still been busy. As far as a budget standpoint, we're still working through with City Council, as Dr. Ali and the manager know. At the last City Council meeting, we did
Your voice went out, Chief.
was 229 is down to 210 officers.
Kind of fading in and out, Chief.
Yeah, Chief,
This-
you're having some connectivity issues, I believe.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm going to change offices. And that's one of the reasons I don't have the video on, is because the video does it even worse. So okay, I'm in a different office. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Yes, it was fine before, except sometimes you would just fade out altogether and then come back.
Okay. So where I left off, we're currently at 210 positions. We are scheduled to hire 8 officers in September. And then we're scheduled to do a test in July to get a new pool, because I do foresee several retirements this year and next. And we do have academy positions in September and January. The ones for September are already filled with the 8 that were supposed to be hired in May. They got bumped to September. And so we do have academy slots for January. As far as the crime stats, that goes out to you guys. So I guess I'll just start answering questions that you have, so I know what you would like to cover.
Chief Marion, this is Andre Allen here. So you said that there's 8 new hires getting ready to start, correct?
Yes, 8 have been through the process, and they are scheduled to start in September.
Okay, because per the minutes in the last meeting, you all received 149 applications, it said that you were going to connect with Deborah Bush about the demographic breakdown per diversity and those type of numbers. Or do you have any breakdown of what that applicant pool looks like as far as diversity?
So that is not the applicant pool that we're working on. We're actually the test got bumped from end of April, beginning of May, or from May/June to July. So we had to push that test back. We're actually up over 200 applications now. So these 8 are off of a previous list.
Thank you.
So I'm interested in Aunt Andre's question also. So what does these 8 look like in terms of demographics? And then what does your new pool of 200 look like in terms of diversity?
The 200 really wouldn't be a pool, right? That's just the applicants. And you'll just select from those 200, right?
But to Janice's point, I think it would be good to know what that pool looks like. You know, are we getting, because I know the city has an ordinance now that, you know, they're wanting to increase the diversity, but if our sample size isn't diverse, then how are we going to hire a diverse workforce?
Yeah, but can you call the applicant pool a pool?
It's an applicant pool.
Okay, applicant pool.
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I had a call beep in. I tried to stop the call, and it actually bumped me out of the Zoom meeting. And so I had to jump back in. So I didn't hear all of Andre's question. I heard a little bit about, but I apologize if you could repeat what you'd asked.
Janice had a follow-up to my question of what did the applicant pool look like as far as the demographics of those 200 applications you said, and I think she also asked what did the demographics look like for those 8 that were hired from that previous pool that are getting ready set to start, if I'm correct, Janice.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. So first I'll wait for the answer.
So I do not have the total results from the applications that were received. Deborah has those. I do not have those yet. As far as the 8 that we're hiring, 3 are African American and 1 is Asian. No, I'm sorry. 2 are African American, 1 is Asian male, and the rest are white.
All males.
I'm seeing if I have my list here with me. I believe that out of that group, they are all males. 2 African American males, 1 Asian male.
So how are we doing meeting our diversity goals? I mean, I'd love to see a chart with our goals next to our achievement. And are there any incentives to achieve our goals? Are there any consequences for not meeting our goals? Are there any ways? I mean, I do kind of remember the last time we looked at the data, we were nowhere near our goals. So I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. What are our procedures for trying to meet our goals? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So one of the things we've been doing aggressive recruiting over the past couple of years, and is actually happy with the results that we had out of the last pool of the diversity that we hired. As far as meeting the goals, we are not at our goal for 2020. Let me pull my minority numbers, because we have 2 different numbers. There's protected class and minority. So to focus on the minority numbers, we are at about 20% minority, and about 28, almost 29% protected class. So you ask about if there are any incentives or anything, any consequences to not reaching their goals. There's not any set in place at this time. You know, one of the things that we do is, like I said, we are recruiting aggressively, trying to target specific areas that where minorities are located. For example, this past year, we've gone to the historical Black colleges and universities trying to recruit people. That is something where we've worked with the board, and I'm trying to think of the name of the board, the hiring group. Dr. Ali, if you could help me out with Mr. Hooks and the group that's in place for that.
Yeah, Diversity Committee on Police and Fire. Let's see, Diversity Committee on Police and Fire Diversity, I think is what we call it.
Okay. Yeah, I could not remember the name of that, but we brought in retired police and fire that are minorities and had them help us in recruiting. And, you know, one of the issues, it goes back to retention. One of the things I could say, I could think of about 4 to 5 people offhand that we have hired, but that haven't made it past the physical. And I know I brought this up before. I know I've given a full presentation to this committee before last year when we gave our diversity presentation. And one of the frustrating things for me, because as hard as we've worked to hire diverse, we ended up having like 3 of the individuals not pass the police physical exam down at the academy. So if you don't pass the physical exam, they don't allow you in. So they had to resign, and a couple of them have gone through the testing process again. Couple other instances, we had a police recruit that made some bad choices while off duty, so had to release him. Actually, 2 police recruits were let go because of choices and incidents that happen off duty. So at the end of the day, that doesn't help my overall numbers, because I end up going down in my minority numbers.
Oh, sorry. Those numbers, what was the goal for the, I know that we saw some goals at one time, but I can't remember what they were.
Yeah, the diversity milestone for 2020 is 27.3%, and 2021 is 29.5. Then it goes all the way up to 2025, and it ends at, or it climbs to 40.5%. But for 2020, it was 27.3%. And to give you an example, I had my crime analyst pull the numbers for me. I think he actually added in, I need to double check, but he has 24% diversity, and the goal is 27.3 so far for 2020. In 2019, the goal was 25.3, and we ended at 19%. But, and here's the other challenge that that we're going to face. Let's take the past 2 weeks and keep this in real perspective. Let's be real here. One of the problems is going to be is, even though I have 200 applicants, number one, I'll be glad if we even get half of them show up with all the things that have been going on in the world today. You're going to see a lot of people withdraw from wanting to be the police, and you have to admit that with the dialogue and rhetoric that's going on against the police right now, who would want to come into this field? So I could see there's going to be an issue of recruiting, and specifically recruiting minority candidates. I've talked to a few different African-American police officers, and each of them said that they would join this meeting at the next meeting if you would like to hear directly from them, as opposed to me trying to explain what they feel and what they go through, especially over the past 2 weeks. It's going to be tough to recruit minority applicants. However, that's not to say we're going to stop trying, and we're going to keep pushing forward, and we'll do everything we can to meet our goals, but it's going to be it's tough.
So have
I have
any
a
other,
question.
oh, sorry.
Lorraine King, I have a question. You talked about some candidates not making it because of not passing the physical exam, and you talked about others who made unwise choices. Are they briefed on the kinds of things that could get them eliminated or terminated during the training process? And is there a particular part of the physical exam that candidates are failing, and can there be assistance in advance to help alleviate that particular outcome?
Yeah, so on the first part, I'll cover the physical exam. The applicants actually failed. One guy didn't pass the run. One guy didn't pass the sit-ups, and one guy didn't pass the bench press. So what we done prior was give them practice exams, and it is done on a voluntary basis to try to, bring them in. We'll give them the test and see where they're short on. They know way ahead of time. I'm talking like before they apply, they know what the requirements are. So it is incumbent upon them to get themselves in the shape that they need to be at the time of the police academy. So it's not like it's a secret and they show up at the police academy and they say, okay, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. They know well ahead of time. And in order to help them, we do give them practice physicals and to let them gauge where they are at. One of the things that we've added for this next test is we're going to have, they're going to have to pass that test prior to moving on in our hiring process. So that will alleviate us hiring somebody and them getting down to the academy and not passing. So hopefully that answers your question on that end of it. And then on the other side of the stuff that they've done, they know that they can't commit crimes. And if somebody commits a domestic battery and they're on probation, they're not going to be able to keep their job here. So there was also, I can't go into a lot of detail because it is a personnel issue. The other stuff that this officer was doing, he knew it was illegal. So yes, the stuff that they were terminated for was well known to them that they couldn't be doing it as a police officer.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Chief Marion, I'm glad that you moved the physical part earlier because it seems, in retrospect, it seems like we celebrate their hiring or, graduation maybe prematurely because we go through those ceremonies at the police station, they get pinned, and then they go down to the academy and then they fail and then they don't really have the job. And there's a press conference and in front of their whole community, they're presented as, police officers but they haven't passed everything. So it can be a real embarrassment for the police, the new recruits, as well as their families, So I'm glad that you switched that up. I'm just wondering whether that celebration ceremony should even take place after they come back from the academy, so it doesn't end up like that.
Yeah, and I actually remember you being at one of those, Dr. Ali, that actually happened at, and we had talked about that. It's set up to where they get sworn in. We have the swear-in ceremony, and then they go down to the academy. I think that with the way the new process will be, that will alleviate it. But we did have discussion about waiting until they get back from the academy and introducing them as, okay, here are the new recruits at that point. So we did have the discussion, but as of right now, we kept it at doing the actual swearing ceremony.
Okay. And maybe it could be more private than public, but just a thought in my head.
Chief, this is Don Jackson. I'd like to know, how often do you test existing officers using the same criteria, physical criteria, that you use when you test new officers?
So we do not test. They only have to pass it one time.
What's the importance of it then? I
That
mean,
is actually,
you got guys on the force who have been on there for 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, and they can't pass those tests. Why is that a barrier to getting people to become police officers? As I understand it, that could be the only thing they fail, that is the physical exam, and they still would not be allowed to be police officers, and yet once you become a police officer, it doesn't matter.
right. So that is actually a state of Illinois requirement. That's not a Peoria Police Department requirement. That's a
Then
state
work
of
to
Illinois
change it.
requirement. I
Work to
can't
change
change
it.
it. I don't know how I would change that. That is, it's required. It's been required for decades. Every police officer in the state of Illinois has passed that entry exam in order to be a police officer. And I don't know how you'd get the state of Illinois to change that requirement.
Well, you talk about what's going on in the community right now. Part of the complaint about policing, and not only in the city of Peoria, but across the country, is the fact that there are not enough African-American officers on the force, male or female. And we have this barrier. We also have what I consider to be the polygraph barrier. And it seems to me that I suspect that once you're an officer, you're rarely ever asked to take a polygraph exam after the fact as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So an officer can come on and be sworn in, spend 10 years and smoke pot throughout that 10 years, and he or she would not be eliminated from the force. But if they smoke pot before, and I'm just using this as an example, I know pot's, the whole discussion about pot, the use of pot has changed. But before, there was a time if you smoked pot, you couldn't get on the force. Or if you knew someone who was in a gang, for example, that may also eliminate you from the force. To me, that's part of what the issue is, not only in Peoria, but around the country. There are so many regulations that can be used detrimentally against African Americans who apply to be police officers, male or female, that generally don't apply to officers who are already police officers. So that's my concern. I know it's not at your level that you can work to do it, but certainly Patrick Urick, or the mayor of the city of Peoria, ought to be having some discussions with someone about this rule.
Logically, it doesn't make any sense.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, you mind if I jump in here?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Terry. Mr. Chairman. Don, just to your point, I did have a conversation today with the state representative from the city of Peoria that represents the largest section of the city of Peoria, and talked specifically about the challenges that we had several years ago when we tried to change some of the hiring practices in Springfield, and some of the problems that we ran into trying to make it easier to recruit minorities into police and fire. And we talked about trying to redouble those efforts as we go forward from here. So we're having those conversations. So I just wanted you to know that.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, what can this committee do to assist? Because one of my concerns with the lack of minorities is that a lot of the police officers who get hired do not reside in the Peoria community, so they never establish relationships, so their paychecks don't get spent in the city,
Right.
you know, as well as them not becoming engaged with the citizens.
Ms. King, that's a great question. And I think that some of the items that I think that Mr. Jackson was bringing up and that you bring up, getting a list of those items from the committee would be helpful, because then as we have these conversations in Springfield, and they're going to happen. Just in the conversation that I had with Representative Gordon Booth today, I think she's very serious about having these conversations. It's worth having those, getting the information, and then seeing if we can't try and move that forward. So I certainly think that's something that we can do. So the feedback from the committee, if there are a list of items you think that we should be addressing, let's gather that information, and we can take it and start to work through it. I really think that this is a good time for us to have this conversation in Springfield. It really is. There's no better time right now. I think the community is engaged. The nation is engaged. Now is the time to have this conversation.
Well, Mr. Manager, since it appears that you have future meetings scheduled, is it possible for one or more of the committee members to accompany you and participate in that discussion?
So what the conversation that I had with Representative Gordon Booth was a phone conversation that we had today, just in talking about what efforts are underway in Springfield that are proceeding on police reform. We mentioned the conversation that we had, or the efforts that we had done to try and drop some of the barriers that we had originally identified. What we need to do right now, more than anything, is get those list of barriers that we're seeing in the community, that we're seeing, that you're seeing in terms of policing, get that list put together in a package that we can send to her to say, here's the information of changes that we'd like to see right now. That's the most important thing we can do, is give the representative the actual substance of what we would like to see change.
Okay, then I'll work on with my other committee members to get that to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest that, it's a long time between this meeting and the next meeting of this commission. So I would suggest that maybe, a committee of volunteers that wants to solicit information from this group and put together that list, because it needs to be done sooner than later. If you're open to putting together a subcommittee to do that.
Yes, ma'am. I welcome it. I mean, I think there's something that could be done on this and volunteer basis, and people just dive in and just help put that together. Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just one other point, and this goes to the recruits, and actually to Ms. King's comments that she just made about not living here. We have on the council's agenda next Tuesday night a pilot project that we're going to start just for this recruitment class. We reached out to all 8 recruits, and we asked them if they would want to, since the academy class doesn't start until September, we reached out to see if they would be interested in serving as a temporary code enforcement aide working in the community between now and September. And so we're bringing them on board as an opportunity to get to know the community and to work with a different department of the city, to get to know the community and to interact in the neighborhoods before they then go off to the academy and then come back and start their field training classes. So that will be on the council's agenda on Tuesday night with a discussion about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's some conversation we had with a group that I'm in tune with in Chicago, how we were talking to some law enforcement there, and a bunch of their new recruiters or newly hired police officers, where they had to go into these impoverished areas, not as a training, but just as an introduction, because some of them have never experienced nothing of this nature ever in life. And it was very powerful and very impactful. So I did participate in Chicago.
Thank you. We're very excited that 5 of the 8 were willing to do it and interested in doing it. Some of the others, just I think for financial reasons, they couldn't do it, but we're happy that they're jumping on board and doing it. So,
Okay. Thank you all. Anyone have any other questions for the chief?
Hey, this is Chief Boone. I was just wondering, on the panel, are we clear on how the hiring process goes or the steps in the hiring process for Peoria Police Department?
You mean individually or the process in general?
The process in general. That way everybody will know what things may need to be tweaked, what things are a barrier, things of that nature.
Chief, would it be helpful if we, and we can do this, we can ask Deborah Bush from HR to provide kind of a flow chart of what the hiring process looks like and how we move through the steps, just so that everyone has that so you can see it. I don't think that would be a problem to put that together.
Right. I mean, I've been through it, and just like what Chief Marion is saying, he's going to have one barrier with what he sees, what's going on societally. That'll be a barrier where people apply or not, retention. But then also, I know when I went to Peoria Police, you had the first physical agility at the Civic Center, which I don't think hardly anybody really failed that. But then you had that test, the written test, that's 3 parts. I mean, you had one that was, mathematics. You had another one that had maps on there. If I was here, get me to this point A to point B in a short time. And then there was also the psychological kind of part of the exam. Do you somewhat agree? Do you fully agree? Somewhat agree? Strongly disagree? That part of the test, me personally, I kind of think it's kind of awkward because you can't particularly grade what officer is going to be perfect by that test. Because if we did, then we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now with officers doing what they do. Also, when we get to the academy, again, the retesting with minority candidates or candidates that don't have other officers in their families or things like that, could we set up someone to be a mentor that's a minority candidate or a minority officer that's already on the force to be a mentor to kind of get them through the academy, SRO, all that other good stuff. Then also, like what Mr. Don Jackson was saying, the polygraph. What are we looking for in the polygraph now? If I admit to smoking marijuana or whatever, or knowing gang members or whatever, what rules me out? Kind of putting that information out, because I know when I took the exam, I didn't know what would rule me out or what would keep me in. I didn't, those are a lot of things that we need to be armed with so that we can kind of navigate those landmines before they apply.
Mr. Boone, Chief Boone, I just want to say I agree with you, because I was also thinking of a current officer being mentors to the cadets. So thank you for voicing that.
So, is Chief Marion, have you disconnected?
Nope, I'm here.
I didn't know. I didn't see your name. Okay.
So I have a question, Chief. Are we allowed, if you start out with 200 applicants, I mean, that means you're doing some decent recruiting. Are you allowed to offer incentives for people to hang around and hang on, or is it just that the other 192 couldn't get through the process? Is it strictly a weeding out by exams and tests, or is it weeding out because people just get disinterested, totally? Are we losing the 192 that we're losing? Are they totally capable people, or are they self-weeding out because they're not going to make it anyway? Can we offer incentives to get the diversity goals met? Because I've been on this committee for a long, seems like a long time, and it doesn't seem like we're making much progress. I don't see any women in your new class.
Well, if you remember, I'm going to stop you there for a second, because if you remember the last hiring, I hired 4 women, and we've got 4 of our 10 recruits that are in the academy now. That's why I said before, I'm very proud of the steps that we've taken in our recruiting. And I went through the complete demographics of the department where we're currently at. And in the last, let me find my paper here. So out of the 14 that we hired in 2019, 4 were African-American. Hold on, that's not the one I wanted. But we have hired out of the last group of 10 that are here, we have an Asian female, African-American female, and 2 white females in that group that are currently here. So I'm not sure if you just didn't recall that we have hired women or what, but as far as the pool, the 8 that we've hired, so they're the second group off of this current list. Previously, we had, so for the June of 19, in the test that was placed in the hiring pool, 52 were white males, 16 were African-American males, 3 were Hispanic males, 2 were Asian males. So out of the 192, I think you're misunderstanding when I say we're hiring 8. That is the second group that we're hiring, and not all of the 190, or it wasn't even 192. I don't have my number that actually tested. I'm trying to find that. If I would have been better prepared if I would have known what numbers that you wanted previously, but I want to say we ended up with around 80 some people left in the pool after ones that actually showed up and applied and took the test and passed the test. We only ended up with like 80 some in the pool, and we hired 2 sets, 2 groups out of that. This 8 is the last group that's going to be hired. The number of applicants actually is increased pretty significant of the eligibility or of the applicants that we had in this pool compared to the last pool. So I am happy with our recruiting efforts, and it did get extended because of COVID. We opened the test back up and extended the deadline date. So that did grab a few more people. So hopefully that helps explain that.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So are we closer to meeting our goals for the women share? You mentioned the 2 for minorities and protected class. How are we doing on achieving the women's goal?
There's no separate women's goal. On the chart, it is an overall minority goal of 27.3 for 2020. And as I mentioned earlier, we the numbers I have were at 24%. So we actually went up from 19% at the end of 19 up to 24% for 2020.
And just to add, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
add just a sidebar comment. The diversity committee, Janice didn't focus on all diversity in terms of women with police and fire, although there was an emphasis in saying that we need to pay attention to this. This is also important. There's shortfalls, especially with fire. There are much more short with fire with women than there were with minorities, but the focus was on increasing representation of minorities. And I have to say, having been a part of and watched this process for a long time, with regard to police, and I can't say the same for fire, there's been significant progress in terms of the recruitment efforts, the promotional material. Deborah Bush, working with Chief and his team, has done just a lot of work and made a lot of changes in these efforts, and we've seen some improvement. Unfortunately, we have lost, some. It hurts to say that we've lost, too many of our recruits to not passing something or getting in trouble, certain things that happen along the way. And I think we have to figure out how to address some of those wraparound supports that Chief Boone was talking about. I really love the idea about bringing those two African-American officers perhaps to the next meeting, and bringing Deborah Bush to the next meeting to be able to provide more direct insight from their experience and what they're doing along those lines. So if everybody is open to that, Mr. Chair, I would like to recommend that we invite these three individuals to the next meeting.
Thank you for the recommendation. Sounds
Mr.
good.
Chair, I second that recommendation.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, and also to briefly go back to City Manager Urick was saying, we're interested in putting a list of volunteers together to help come up with some of the information to address some of the barriers and obstacles that our State Rep John Gordon Booth is referring to, move some of those barriers and stuff. So we can put us a list of volunteers together for that as well.
Yeah, I'll volunteer for the 2 months that I've got left, but I would ask, am I muted? Can you hear me?
Yes,
We
sir.
hear you.
Okay, but I would ask that Nina Gugic should be able to attend with me so that she can move smoothly into the position.
Great.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to be on that committee as well as Lorraine King.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Chief Boone. I'll definitely help with that committee.
Andre Allen, you can add me too, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to see that too. So you might have a whole committee.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you all. Okay.
I was going to say I would like to also. Shalandra.
Jalan, Ms. Barnes? Okay, well, thank you. Okay.
I have another question. The two officers that are coming to the next meeting, are they going to be free to talk about not only some of the social barriers that are happening in the community, but also how they are treated as officers by their peers on the force as well? In other words, I think it ought to be a full-blown discussion about that. But I'd like to know if there's going to be any restrictions on what questions that we can ask them.
Nope, not at all. They have free will and reign to answer any
Well,
questions.
they don't. You know that. I don't want to retaliate against if they say that upset somebody.
Nope. And the two guys that I'm going to have are Morris Franklin and Sherelle Stinson. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Jackson. I truly believe that you ask them a pointed question and they'll tell you how it is. They're straight shooters. So but they'll have no restrictions from me on what they can or can't answer.
All right.
Okay. Anything else for the chief?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Move on to unfinished business. I must say at our last meeting before it convened, we were talking about some collaborative efforts to get back onto, we talked about a 12-month planner, but just getting back on track with like town halls and all zip codes, getting more involved and more engaged in community outings and things of that nature. So anybody care to respond?
Mr. Chair, I would actually like to make a motion to defer this to the next meeting with the hopes that we have more clearance or more of an idea of what the guidelines are going to look like as far as phase 4. And because I would hate for us to come up with a planner and we're not able to execute it because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Makes sense.
Agree.
I second that.
Anybody second? Mr. Boone? Okay,
I
we'll
second
take,
that, sir.
thank you, sir. We'll chair that until the next meeting. Okay. So I guess
We need to vote on that, Mr. Chair.
Can we take a vote on that, please? Anybody all in favor of?
Yeah. Aye.
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 Okay. All opposed, say aye. Okay, well, thank you. We'll table that until the next meeting. Thank you very much. There was some conversation about rather around a PCAP continuation still under unfinished business. It's my understanding at last times, some of the committee kind of unclear about kind of what was going on with this new committee forming. If anybody want to touch base on that?
Mr. Chair,
Mm.
Ms. Lorraine King,
Yes,
one of the things that I was informed of after we had the last meeting and that person got up to speak was that person was not even the chair of the committee. So I was wondering if it would be possible to have the chair of that committee meet with us at some point.
Okay, I agree. Well, maybe we could extend an invitation to the chair of PCAP to see how they want to respond.
Who is that chair? Do you know?
That is Mr. Chris Duncan.
Right. Person, can I, on behalf of the board?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, guys, I've been very busy with my job dealing with COVID-19, so I have not been able to participate. As far as PCAP is concerned, we started a meeting with the ministers group prior to the COVID-19 starting. Actually, I attended one of those ministers group meetings as only one, and we were planning to have a follow-up meeting with Reverend Johnson participating, but that never materialized because of COVID-19. So PCAP has not officially met with that ministers group to collaborate about anything moving forward.
Okay.
To bring you up to date, we voted for board positions last week at PCAP. Our terms are up and we start a new term in July. And as of July, Chris Duncan has stepped down as president, and he will be replaced by Gloria Clark. Miss Gloria Clark will be the new president starting in July. Vice President Gloria was vice president, but that will be filled by Angela Kramer as vice president as in July. I was the treasurer at the point of the last couple of years. I'm being replaced by Bertha Mize Jackson as the treasurer. Andrew Barber will still be our secretary. I will remain a board member. And we've had monthly Zoom meetings as well, but we haven't been able to get together to collaborate with the ministers group to any firm plans how we gonna work together as a group. So nothing has really materialized as far as partnering with the minister group and PCAP and what their role would be. They came under our umbrella, but nothing happened after that discussion because of COVID-19. So we're still in limbo on how we're going to work together, our role with the ministers group, but trying to work together within the community was the goal. But we have not had a chance to meet to discuss how do we move forward at this time.
Thank you for that, Mr. but I do have a question. So would you say collaboration with the ministers? So what would be the title of your new organization, or just under the umbrella of PCAF?
They're just under the umbrella of PCAF. It's a ministry group. Since we were an established group and working with the community, they thought it would be easier for them to come under the PCAF umbrella and work with us and the community to collaborate with all the different organizations within the community was their goal. They were meeting, discussing, planning for a long period of time of how they will evolve into an effective group. And so we were just beginning to, they share their vision, their goals with us prior to COVID-19. So we haven't had a chance to sit down and even discuss how it's gonna look with them under our umbrella, but they're their own group under PCAF umbrella. They respond and talk to the board, but they're just under, it's like any committee. We have an outreach committee under PCAF. They will follow like an outreach group under the PCAF umbrella.
Okay, appreciate
Mr.
that.
Chair, may I add something to that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to say to Mr. Ford, the confusion after the last meeting was that that group had the same name as our group, so that added to the confusion. So that's why I was interested in having the discussion.
Yeah, I agree. I understand. I think it's based similar, very same, close to the same name, and that's something they need to talk about. I agree.
And also, I thought part of the last meeting, and Mr. Ford, you might be able to provide context on this, that group also had out other people that weren't pastors. Like I thought they had a couple of officers that were part of it and some other different community members as well. Is that true, or is it just the pastors that are part of this group now that are?
You're right. There were a couple of officers involved, community members involved. I think like Jesse McGowan was invited to participate. He chose not to because he was involved with other things, but it was a lot of different community individuals that was involved in that group. And PCAF was not part of formulating that group. PCAF was asked to come for someone to participate in that group dynamic, but then it was determined that they could fall under the PCAF umbrella as a part of PCAF. But there are different community members involved. And I think Pastor Johnson would be better to answer that question, how that evolved, selecting the qualifications. There were qualifications, I think, that you had to meet to be a part of that board, that group.
Yeah. Thank you. Because Mr. Johnson, Pastor Johnson came to our very last meeting. He was trying to enlighten us on that because we questioned that. Like I said, to Ms. King's point, where we thought the confusion came in because they were like pretty much had the same title as Peoria Police and Community Advisory Committee. And that's kind of where we were kind of like thrown and didn't know the entire makeup. So we're also told that it would come under the PCAF umbrella, but now you're telling me there was a total different entity you was bringing that thing into play?
Yes.
Okay.
They were like, I think they were meeting and talking about forming some kind of group over a long period of time to have some kind of positive impact in the community under the ministers. And then I think it kind of grown where other individuals were invited, selected, applied to become a part of that program. And I think the goal was really to work as another organization within the community. And I think it's something where it should collaborate with this committee also as being a part. Because I think they're trying to do some of the same things as a group. But I think there needs to be just more discussion with the pastors group, this committee, PCAF, as far as moving forward, working together, because we're trying to accomplish the same thing, but we have to communicate so we all understand where we're going, what direction we're going in, and we're all operating on the same page with no confusion. Transparency, because I think we're trying to accomplish, but it needs more communication need to take place.
And that's where we took our position on the existing committee was, how we felt like not offended. We kind of felt like somebody was trying to undercut us, to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. And that's why we were kind of didn't know what was going on, but appreciate the clarity.
It's my pleasure. Everything I can answer because it has communication. I'm trying to understand things in the community. Just need more transparency and more direct communication between everybody and all the different.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just briefly, really appreciate Mr. Ford for that insight. I think it provides, some additional information. I agree about the communication, and I think that's what really broke down is that we were all blindsided by that. And then in looking at the mission of that, the draft, maybe it's a draft mission of the committee, it said that it was, the mission was to protect the integrity of the police. That just seemed kind of different. And then the fact that it required 2 members of the police union to be part of the makeup. And it just, I don't know, it felt very police heavy. And it felt, made us, because we didn't know about it. And it just seems like it was an intent to replace, but the communication, I agree. The communication is important. I think as many individuals that we can have out there trying to improve police community relations is important, but we have to all work together and not work in vacuums.
Councilman, I agree with you 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Moving on to new business. Okay. We know that some of the terms are expiring very soon for the chair and vice chair position. I want to say it's June the 30th of this month. So I'm interested in trying to figure out how we all would like to move on behalf. We do like the open meetings tonight by polling the committee. Time is of the essence. We're talking about less than 2 weeks. So how would you guys like to wait? In a position
Mr. Chair, are you saying that people that are on the committee, the terms are expiring? Because today I received a call that I was going to be reappointed and it would be read into the council meeting next Tuesday.
The reappointment will be to the committee itself, not per se holding a vice chair position, even along with myself. My position will be available again. I still will be appointed to the committee, but it's up to the committee to or nominate the new chair and vice chair.
Okay.
So are you opening the floor to nominations?
I am.
For which position, Mr. Chair?
Start with the vice chair. Oh, let's start with the chair. I'm sorry. Let's start with the
chair. Yeah.
Chair. Or the chair position or open nominations. I nominate Andre Allen.
Yay. I second that.
Yeah, I think Andre would be great.
I like that idea.
Okay.
I agree too.
Okay.
Second.
Excuse me? I heard Ms.
Someone nominated and I was second the motion.
Second motion. Okay. Great. All right. So should we cast our vote? Second the nomination. Should we start a vote on the chair?
Are there any more nominations out there?
Are there any more nominations? Like 5 people, 6 people. Are there any more nominations?
No.
None. So be it. Okay, so we'd like to cast votes into that chair position.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Say aye.
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 Aye. Oh, I don't vote, sorry.
Okay, you're not voting. All right. Great. All opposed, say aye. Have no one opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Allen. You are the new
Allen.
Thank you all so much. You guys are making me blush. I appreciate this. Thank you all so much. Thank you. And thank you, Brother Chair. You have done a great job this year, and I know there was a lot of adversity with COVID-19, and but I appreciate you having confidence and nominating me, brother. And I look forward to us continue to collaborate.
Thank you. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Thank you all. I thank you all for the opportunity. I mean, I've enjoyed the ride. It's been good, and I'm not going nowhere. Still on the team. Still on the bandwagon.
Thank you for your leadership, Terry.
Thank you.
Yeah, you stepping in and standing up and representing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So will Andre take over then with the next meeting?
The next meeting, the July meeting, the first, next month. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Cast nominations on the vice chair position.
I would like to nominate Janice Zaccardo.
I second that nomination.
You, so be it. Votes on any more nominations? Okay. All in favor of Ms. Zaccardo as vice chair?
Aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Zaccardo. You are our new vice chair.
Thanks, you guys. Andre, I look forward to working with you. And thanks, Lorraine and Terry, both for your service on the committee.
You're welcome. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, Lorraine. Beautiful job.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss King. Thank you for having my back. Thank you. And congratulations, Ms. Zaccardo. You too will hand over the reins in the first July meeting. Is there any more new business? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the chief.
Yes.
When's Mrs. Jackson's last day? Is she?
Yeah, this next Friday is her last working day.
But she'll be in the office that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right. Well,
Don't try to call in, Joyce. Don't try to call in sick.
Oh, I didn't realize she was on.
Well, while we're, yes, ma'am.
When she retires, so she'll no longer be the secretary, is that?
Correct.
So what do we do about that?
She introduced her replacement, I thought.
Yeah, she introduced her new replacement.
Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, you weren't on yet, but she introduced her new replacement.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm not good with technology, so I had to figure this out on my own.
Okay. My second. Okay. But before moving on, I would like to thank you personally, Ms. Jackson, for your service, for all your amazing service for this committee and beyond. Thank you very much, ma'am. I've learned a lot and I appreciate your tutelage. You've been a blessing.
Congratulations, Miss Jackson. Enjoy your retirement. We're going to miss you.
And Miss Jackson, before you leave next Friday, if me and you can just connect briefly, I would love to get a little bit of that tutelage before you ride out. So I'm gonna shoot you an email, and maybe we can connect for a 30-minute Zoom or something like that. So that'll be coming. Just forewarning.
Andre, can I crash your Zoom?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So, okay, well, thank you all. Because there's not I guess citizens for opportunity to address committee, they didn't submit any requests via email or anything else, so we won't have that part. If we have nothing further, a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Andre.
I move, Mr. Chair, that we adjourn.
Thank you. So ordered. Thank you all. You have a blessed evening.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank
Yep,
you.